business, fear is the biggest thing that holds people back and keeps us from achieving what we want to achieve. So it's a 4-letter word and it does start with F, but I'm not going to go there. But it's ugly. There's that acronym, false evidence appearing real. We've all heard that, but it is real because we feel it. And I think it holds us back or keeps us from doing things that we otherwise would do. And so I just want to talk about fear. I think it's very real. I think it's big, especially with new agents. And I don't feel like it's something that maybe we talk about enough. I think like when I started out, I had imposter syndrome. I had, that whole mindset of, I can't believe all these things are happening to me. They don't seem to be happening to anybody else. What if this happens? What if that happens? It's all, Barry Clarkson talks about the noise in our heads. Well, that's it right there. But I think fear is one of the biggest culprits to us achieving success and what we want in life. So I'm pulling from 2 books today. So if you want to know where this material is coming from, The Magic of Thinking Big. I don't know if any of you have heard it. It's an old classic. I've read it. I read it a long time ago, and I pulled it back out. And then Grit, which is a newer one that we were reading a few months ago. Eric's suggestion. I love that book. So just a few highlights, and then just my own thoughts kind of mixed in here. But first, on this from the Magic of Thinking Big, when he talks about fear, he mentions some things that are kind of interesting. His chapter 3 is build confidence and destroy fear. So he says, well, he makes a point, first of all, that nobody is born with confidence. There's no such thing as a baby that has all the confidence. Confidence is acquired and developed. Now, Dr. Schwartz was a psychologist, so he's not just some schmo that makes this stuff up. He knows what he's talking about, but he says that that nobody is born with confidence. And I think sometimes we feel like other people are, like they have a special gift or something, that they didn't have to work at their confidence, or they didn't have to work at overcoming their doubts, their self-limitations, their fears, and their beliefs that hold them back. That's all stuff that everybody has to work on, whether they worked on it younger and they just got it, and then in their older years they had it down, or they waited in life. Someone like me who's just getting into this business, 50 years old, going through a lot, trying to overcome a lot of this stuff. I would have loved to go back and work on some of these things when I was younger, but it just wasn't part of my life back then. But at some point, we all have to go through it because nobody's born with this. And then, of course, talked about how action cures fear, which is the opposite. It's the cure-all. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But hesitation, I love this. He goes, hesitation only enlarges and magnifies the fear. Take action promptly and be decisive. I think a lot of times we overthink things. I know when, dialing, for example, it's common where we look at the lead, we see the name, we look at how old they are, we imagine what they look like. Oh, this guy's probably bald. Oh, this guy's probably this. I'll bet he's got a beard. Like, our mind starts playing up all kinds of weird things when you spend all that time on the lead. This guy sounds mean or whatever. And what does that do? Well, it just feeds the fear, right? That hesitation opens up a little bit of space for the fear to creep in. I think the people that are most successful make decisions quickly and move forward without a second thought. And then they find out if they were wrong or not. And if they were wrong, guess what? They learned what not to do, and they can self-correct a lot easier, a lot quicker than if they hesitate and wait and go through all the drama of back and forth and thinking and all that stuff. So the hesitation, Eric talks about it a lot. Don't flinch, right? You heard that from him and Barry. That's the hesitation, the flinch. It's like when we second guess ourselves, that second thought is exactly what's going to keep us from doing what we initially felt, which is, I need to make phone calls. And then that second thought comes right behind it. Yeah, but you really need to eat lunch. It's kind of late, or yeah, but someone's at the door, or yeah, but you haven't done this or that. And you can find you can find excuses anyway. You can find reasons why not to do something anywhere, but it's the hesitation that opens that up. So we all hesitate, and I think that feeds the fear. Now, the other thing I'll say about fear, and this is just my own observation, is I feel like the basis of fear comes from worry. When we're worried about what might happen. Again, this goes back to mind drama, right? All the noise going on in our heads. What if this happens? What if that happens? Well, you know what? We always go to the worst case scenario, but why do we never go to the best case scenario? Why do we never worry about what if this does happen? What if this lead is desperately looking for life insurance and he's my best client? What if I make this phone call and run this appointment and it's a $500,000 annuity? Like, why do we never go there? Our minds are always like, what if this guy shuts me down? What if this is a no-show, right? What if I go through all this work and it gets declined, and then I've got an unhappy client? It seems like we always go to the worst case scenario instead of the best case scenario. So something you can start retraining your brain to do is counterbalance that with a crazy best case scenario. Like, what if this next lead is, a $5,000 commission check? Like, what if, right? So why not play the what if game to your advantage? Well, what if is what feeds worry. That's that thought. But what if? And we know by experience that, I don't know, 80-90% of the things that we worry about never come to pass. They just don't. I mean, you can track it in your life, like all the things you worry about, in the end, they always kind of shake out one way or the other. It's always fine, right? It always turns out to be okay. There's a popular movie that my wife and I really like, and it's the first Marigold Hotel. I can't remember the name. It's a really long name. It's this Indian hotel guy. He's an entrepreneur. He's starting up a business, and he just has this immensely positive mindset. Like, everything's fine. Everything's going to work out. And it's like failure after failure after failure. And he has this philosophy that, when he said it on the movie, it struck me and it stuck with me. And he said, everything always works out in the end. If it hasn't worked out yet, it's not the end. And I'm like, well, like, at first it was kind of funny. I'm like, well, that's kind of silly, but that's the philosophy he lived by. So he's like, well, it hasn't worked out yet, so therefore it's not the end, but it always works out in the end. And that mindset, whether it's true or not is irrelevant, but it served him well because it kept him going. And I feel like a lot of times when it comes to fear and doubt and worry and all these plagues that we face as entrepreneurs, none of it's tangible. It's all inside of our heads, and therefore it's all 100% up to us to fix, because no one else can get inside your head. Now, here's why it happens, though. When we're employees, we're in a comfort zone, right? We're in a box, literally, cubicle, but we're in a box. We're in a comfort zone, and we do what other people tell us, and we show up because we're supposed to. We have external forces, external accountability. Everything is all built in. And then you become an entrepreneur, business owner, life insurance agent, right? Field underwriter. And all of a sudden the walls of the box come down and everything lands in your lap. And now we're open to all the stuff that we feel: the worry, the fear, the self-doubts, the imposter syndrome, the I'm not good enough, the what ifs, the mind drama, the noise, that all creeps in because those box walls have come down. I went through it, and I'm speaking from firsthand experience because I had a job. Years ago, I was an employee, W-2, and that was my life for 15 years after college. I graduated, came down here to Arizona, got a job, was trying to do the best that I could do, trying to figure out life, raise a family. It was a good job, and I made a decent income, but I was in a box. And, who else is in a box are prisoners, right? They've got four walls, a little window. Sometimes you can see the sky, but I felt like that. Home to work, work to home. And as soon as I came across this opportunity, I knew what it potentially could do for me. and kind of cracked open a little bit of one of the walls and gave me a little bit of hope, a little ray of sunlight coming through. But with that crack also let in other things that I hadn't had. And they're all mixed in out there. It's kind of a mixed bag. You have to get the good with the bad. So the freedom and the hope and the opportunity, it's all mixed in with the fear and the doubt and the worry. Okay, everything kind of seeped in. So I had to sort that out. I had to take the good with the bad and say, I'm going to hang out over here with this stuff and I'm going to reject this stuff. And if I didn't learn how to do that, I'd still be at my job. I still wouldn't have left, because when it came down to it, you probably all heard me say this before, but it came down to risk. The risk of staying in my job became greater than the risk of leaving and potentially failing. And when I came to that realization, that's when I had enough courage to go in and turn in my notice and leave and go full time. And that's in June, it'll be 4 years. So it's been a journey, and some of you are leaving your jobs. Some of you are trying to, some of you are working on it. But we all come into this business at different phases and different stages with different backgrounds and different skill sets and different talents and different. So why do we compare ourselves to each other? Why do we say, well, Eric is there, so why am I not there? Well, Eric had a different journey. Eric has different skill sets. He has a different background, different career path. Same with myself. Let's say that I told all of you, let's go to Disneyland. Let's take a trip to Disneyland. And I say, okay, I'm going to give you specific directions on how to get there. Ready? I want you to go out and get in your car, back out of the driveway, because I'm telling you mine, right? So I would get back out of my driveway, and then I would turn right, and then I'm going to go to the stop sign and make a left. Okay, so everybody do that. So you're all like, okay, I'm going to go to the stop sign, turn exactly what he said. Well, guess what? You're not going to get to Disneyland following my exact set of directions, because I'm in a different location than you are. I can teach you generally, let's go to Disneyland. You got to get on the freeway. You're going to have to, you're going to get stuck at stoplights. You're going to have a few detours. You're going to have some heavy traffic. Like, that's all going to be part of the journey, but we're headed there as a direction, and you're going to get there if you keep going and you trust me and you have faith. But I can't tell you turn left at the stoplight, because that might not be true for you. So our worries and our doubts and our fears come as a result of us literally and overthinkingly comparing ourselves to the journey of others. But that's not fair, right? It's not fair to do that, because we all have different journeys. So we're all headed in a direction. We're all headed in a destination. Our individual steps on getting there are going to be a little bit different. So anyways, the things that I wanted to mention here is, and I hope all this kind of mumbo jumbo is making sense. It's a whole bunch of it's rattling around in my head, and I hope it's coming out right. But there's only just a handful of fears in business that we experience, and I want to talk about them for a few minutes, because they're real. They are real, even though we call it false evidence appearing real. Fear is a very real thing. It's intangible. Like, you can't scoop it up and throw it in the trash can. Like, we would all want to do that, but we can't. Like, it's not like that, but it is real. It's thoughts, and it's a way of thinking and a way of living that is debilitating. So the first one is a fear of risk. That's what I felt when I was thinking about leaving my job. Like, there's a risk. Like, what if, right? All the what if things. What if I fail? What if this happens? What if that happens? Well, what the reframe, I got 5 fears and 5 reframes. So it's a different way of thinking about it that might help you overcome that fear. Okay. The reframe on the fear of risk is that you understand risk is everywhere. When we think there's a fear of, there's a risk, I'm going to risk doing something. I'm going to risk looking like an idiot if I make phone calls. I'm going to risk, spending an hour driving to potentially a no-show. There's a risk there, right? These are little risks, and we may not even be consciously thinking of them, but in the back of our heads, it's a real thing. And the fear of risk is simply offset by the understanding that risk is everywhere. Risk is part of life. You can't get away from risk by avoiding it, because doing nothing is a risk, right? Doing nothing is a risk. In fact, that might be one of the biggest risks. Doing something, even though you could potentially fail, is at least less risky in my mind than doing nothing at all, especially when it comes to activity in the business. So fear of risk is real. It's just a simple reframe. You know what? Risk is everywhere. Accept it. You can't change it. So what are we going to do? We're going to choose our risk. That's what I did when I left my job, is I chose my risk. The risk of leaving was less than the risk of staying. But either way, there was a risk. We're in the risk management business. When we talk about life insurance products with our clients, we're managing risk for them. What is the risk of not getting an insurance policy? What is the risk of getting one? Well, you've got to pay that premium every month, right? But when we build enough value in the risk of not getting one, that premium payment doesn't become nearly as big a deal in the mind of the prospect. So risk is everywhere. We accept it. We know there's risk. There's risk in buying leads. There's risk in running appointments. There's risk in waking up every day, getting out of bed. You could trip and twist your ankle. I mean, there's tons of stories of people that did nothing and they got injured. So risk is a part of life. And when you stop trying to avoid it and embrace it and choose the best risk for your life, that's a reframe that helps you overcome that fear. So the second fear is a fear of failure. This is a big one. This is huge, right? We all want to succeed. Everyone wants to be the success story. I can remember for years, I wanted out of my job, and you all know that about me. I was hoping, and I lived on hope, right? It's a drug called hopium. I was living on a drug called hopium that a headhunter would magically come out of the blue, find me, make an offer, and bring me out of my job into a much better job. Did anybody that ever had a job, did anybody daydream about a headhunter finding you and just like, what if somebody found me and it's like offered this huge salary and all these benefits? And, I would just kind of like in the back of my mind, I'd play around with that because I had fun with that. But it was just hope. It was just hopium. It's a drug that you just can't, you're never going to get satisfied with. So I had the risk of, I was talking about the risk of failure, because in business, in life, that's the thing. We're all wanting success. We all want the journey to just happen for us. We all want those headhunters to come and just guide us along. But really, we have to take ownership. We have to do the hard things to create the success. And there is failure attached to it. It's like a stick. I think of an analogy of a stick. One end of the stick is success and the other one is failure. And if I were to ask you, well, pick up just the success end of the stick, not the failure end, how would you do it? You can't. It's impossible, right? Success is built on a huge pile of failures. And so the reframe is to teach yourself the thought, failure is the best teacher. It's the best teacher in the world. How does everybody learn? By either one of two ways, your own mistakes or someone else's mistakes. Isn't that true? Like this book, well, I'll use this one as an example. Any book, right? This is an accumulation of somebody's lifetime experiences and all the failures that they went through in order to learn how to write this book. The book comes from failures. People try things and fail. And yet we think when we get in business that we run 10 appointments and we don't make any sales, that we are a failure. So what I suggest is be a failer, not a failure. That makes sense? Be a failer. In other words, be someone who's willing to fail. It's okay to be a failer, someone who fails, because that means you're moving forward. So the stick is attached. You've got both ends of the stick on the same one. So if you're chasing success, you're going to have failure, but failure is not you. Failure is an event outside of you. So you are not a failure, you're experiencing failure. So you're a failer. So the reframe is don't look at failure as a bad thing. Look at failure as the teacher. Every manager in here, every leader in here, everybody on the top of the leaderboard, Barry Clarkson himself, they all learn from making mistakes. So if you're out there hitting the ground every day and you're making mistakes, you're right on track, right? It's not comfortable. It's not fun, right? The walls are down. That box isn't there anymore, okay? but it's the road, it's the path. And you can actually look and see if I'm failing, it means I'm moving. It means I'm doing something right, because who's not failing is somebody who's in their comfort zone every day, who's not exposing themselves to some growth or to something new. So take pride in the fact that you're failing, because it means you're putting yourself out there and you're on the road to a better destination. Next failure, or next fear, number 3, is the fear of rejection. So rejection is normal in business. Breakfast of champions, right? The when I talk about the possibilities that I have when I buy a batch of leads, I don't know what's in there. It's a deck of cards. There's 4 aces, there's 4 kings, there's also a bunch of 2s and a bunch of 3s and a bunch of 4s that I'm not going to do anything with. Well, I don't know who's who, so I'm just going to call and find out. So my mindset shifts a little bit, and I learn, and I just look at rejection as part of the game. It's normal in business. Okay, nobody comes in, and we all want to never be rejected, but it doesn't happen. So understanding and reframing to, instead of seeing rejection as a bad thing, every champion eats rejection for breakfast. So if you're privileged to have some rejection, if you're going through some of that, it's not going to take the rejection away, but you can pat yourself on the back for eating the breakfast of champions alongside every other champion that has done it. You look at sports. I love sports analogies. Michael Jordan was cut from his JV team as a basketball player. He had to take a summer off trying to get back on track, develop his skills, but he was rejected. I mean, there's so many examples of rejections in real life. And the key is to just not quit. The key is to see rejection as part of the process. It doesn't mean you are a failure. It means you are failing, which is a good thing, right? Because that's your best teacher. And you pick yourself up and you keep going, because the next one might be the home run. Here's another one: fear of uncertainty. So this is number 4, fear of uncertainty. We don't know where we're going. We only have enough light to get us to the next stop. Let's say it's nighttime and we're trying to drive home. Well, street lights are a great analogy, right? A street light doesn't shine all the way to your house. A street light just shines, and I borrowed this from John Maxwell, by the way. I love the guy. A street light just shines another, 20 yards. That's it, until the next street light. And then another one and another one. And you've got your headlights, which shine a little bit. They only shine up ahead a little far. They don't shine all the way home. You have to use faith to get yourself just to the next step, knowing that when you get there, there's going to be enough light to get you to the step after that. So uncertainty is part of the process, okay? And yet somehow, if you just keep going, the answers to the next phase of your journey are going to be there when you complete this next step that's in front of you. We don't ever start out with all the answers. And that's the hard part, is we have to be okay with that. We only start out with a few answers. You only start out with just a few steps. And then once you take that action, it's almost like a reward. You're given a reward of, here's the next set of answers to take you to the next step, and so forth, all the way to your destination. So fear of uncertainty, that can be overcome with a reframe of just simply focusing on what you can control, right? I don't know what's out there, miles and miles down the road, but I can see from the street light what's around me 20 feet, okay? So this is what I can control. Today, I can control my mindset. I can control my thoughts. Take some effort, but I can. I can control my activity. As soon as we're done, I can choose to make phone calls. And we always go to that because that is the number one activity in our business. I can choose to dial. I can choose to do follow-ups. I can choose to, whatever I have on my calendar, I chose that. Okay, at one point. Now you might say, well, that's not true. I have to go to my job. Well, you chose the job. Okay, whatever is going on in your day, you chose that at some point. Maybe you didn't wake up and choose it this morning, but everything that's in your control, or everything that's going on right now, rather, is a sum total of all the choices you've made up until now. So your future, then, it stands to reason, is the sum total of the choices you're making now moving forward. So if you don't like the choices you've made now, it's as simple as changing those choices to make a better future. So fear of uncertainty is controlling or focusing on what you can control, because all the stuff you can't control is worry. We call that worry. And we already talked about worry. It's the heart of fears. It cracks open and lets in all those fears. So we don't want to go there. So we just focus on what we can control and let the outcomes happen on their own. I set my goals around my activity, not my results. The results all happen on their own. That's where faith comes in. Fear of inadequacy. This is the last one. And basically, we all come in just out of the, studying the test, just passing. Maybe you're like me and you just barely passed. You just barely got over that 70 mark. You're like, woohoo, I don't care. But we all have that fear of inadequacy. We start sitting down running your appointments of, what if they ask me a question I don't know the answer, right? Anybody feel that? Any new agents feeling that? Like, what if I look stupid? What if they're like, well, you're the agent. How do you not know the answer to this? Fear of inadequacy, or in other words, imposter syndrome. That's very real, and it keeps a lot of people from moving forward, because everybody has to start out without having a lot of knowledge. Nobody's born with the knowledge. So when you come to understand, well, even the best agents in the company, even the most knowledgeable life insurance agents, even sales skills or conversational skills or success habits, everybody started out not knowing at some point. We just don't know what they looked like then because we didn't know them back then, right? We all know Eric today, but who knew Eric when he was young, starting out and didn't know stuff and frustrated? And, he tells stories about throwing things through the wall. That's not the Erics we see today. So when we look at him today, why do we compare ourselves and say, why, I should be like that? Well, no, if you could go back in time 15 years and compare yourself to him or any of the leaders that that would be a more accurate comparison. Still wouldn't be fair because you're comparing two different lives, but at least you can be at the similar, point of journey. So when we all start out, we all want to know all the answers. We all want to have all the success. And sometimes we're impatient with ourselves, but fear of inadequacy, that just comes from experience, and you just have to be patient with yourself. So the reframe is celebrate any little win that you get. You know what? Nobody booked. I sat down and did a dial session and nobody answered. Well, that's the wrong thing to focus on, because did you control whether or not they pick up the phone? That's out of your control. So what's the reframe? I made 25 dials. It's the most I've ever made. Up until now, I'd only made 10. Now I'm talking small. These are just really small numbers, but you know what? We celebrate the success no matter how big it is. That builds your self-confidence, it builds your self-worth, and it helps you understand that you're progressing and you're not staying stuck. So celebrate every little success you can, focus on your strengths, and then don't compare. I talked about that already. Don't compare. I want to just wrap up, and then we'll, if you guys want to go into some training, we can. But I love this thought that I took a picture of another book that I was reading the other day. This is a quote from Calvin Coolidge, and he says this: press on. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education alone will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. That gives me hope, because I don't have a huge college degree of I don't have a lot of education. Like, I was an art student. I got an art degree. I could paint and draw. That was it, right? Like, I don't come into this business with all kinds of fabulous experience and knowledge and education. This gives me hope, because persistence in the face of challenges, persistence overcomes everything. If you just, and sometimes my mantra for the day is, for one more day, I'm going to continue to not quit. I'm going to continue to not quit. So that's sometimes all I got. I'm like, I don't know. It's been a tough week. I've gotten my what handed to me, and I'm not sure what else to do, except I'm just going to continue to not quit. That's all I got today. Okay. Sometimes that's real. Sometimes that's how it is. 4 years in the business. I still feel those days sometimes. I'm like, nope. All I know is I made a commitment and I'm going to continue to not quit. I don't have all the answers. I have fears that I'm overcoming. I have insecurities. I have inadequacies. I feel all these fears that I talked about to you. They don't just magically go away. You learn to work with them. They don't just magically go away. But the thing that gives me hope is you don't have to be someone that has all these special set of circumstances. Average, everyday people can do this and be successful. And if you don't feel like you're somebody that has all those extra special characteristics or a certain type of background or certain knowledge, well, welcome to the club, because 99% of us are in the same boat. Yeah. And all we can do is persist and keep going, and not being afraid to take risk, to fail, to, endure rejection, not being afraid of the uncertainty and the lack of light that's out there, and not being afraid of not having all the answers, but just go out there and serve people, love people, help them find the answers. Not be afraid of saying, I don't know the answer. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I don't know where I'm going to be in 6 months, but 12-week year, I'm going to try and figure out where I'm going to be in 90 days. Cause that's right around me. Focus on the things that we can control. And then, just like Calvin Coolidge said, persistency. Just don't quit. Just keep moving forward, and everything will happen. So I don't know who needed to hear that today. That really was just on my heart. And I hope it came out the way that it was bouncing around in my head. But let me just pause, I guess, and kind of open up and see what you guys feel. And if you have anything you'd like to add, then feel free, or we can do some training.